And we're live!
Yay.
This is Mahabali, co-director of Virtually Connecting, and we're connecting with the Digital Pedagogy Lab at UMW. And we have with us on site two of the keynote speakers, Tressie, McMillan, Cottom, and Cathy Davidson, and Sean Michael Morris, who is the director of the Digital Pedagogy Lab. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and then our virtual participants will introduce themselves, and then we'll have a conversation with everybody.
I think we should defer to Cathy first.
Oh, well, okay. So we don't do after you at once, right? Hi, I'm Cathy Davidson, and I'm the co-founder and longtime director of Haystack. And I now, as of July 2014, teach at the Graduate Center and throughout the City University of New York. And I direct a program there called the Futures Initiative. And I'm so happy to be here and to meet some of you who I know only through Twitter in live, we say live, or at least synchronously. That's great to meet you. Thank you.
And hi, everybody. I'm Tressie McMillan Cottom, now Assistant Professor of Sociology at Virginia Commonwealth University. I also have to shout out I'm a faculty associate at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society. Just got finished speaking to the fine folks here at the lab. And I know almost all of the people down there, too, except for a couple, maybe, although I may know you, too. I just got to figure out your picture on Twitter. But hi.
I'm Sean Michael Morris. I'm the director of the Pedagogy Lab and an instructional designer. Very helpful.
Okay. Could you guys on site start moving a little bit closer to the mic? I'm not sure which mic Autumn has on. I think it's not the default one. Just come a little bit closer. Okay. So George, you start, and then everybody else in the order we have in the chat. And just say where you are and what time it is.
Okay. Hi. I'm George Station. I'm at Cal State Monterey Bay, and it is just after 3 p.m.
Ah, 3 p.m. Good.
Hey, George.
Hey, Tressie.
Hi, my name is Lisa Hammersheim, and I'm located just outside of Chicago, and it's just after 5 p.m. here, so George and I are not very exciting in our times, I think.
I'm Terry Spelitz, and I am in Vienna, Austria, and it's midnight.
Oh,
Sherry.
Yeah.
Sherry.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
It's about you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sunday Richard, and I'm Middle America, not exciting time either. Sorry about that. I get to follow the Midnight Woman, so you know.
Who else?
There we go.
Hi, this is Whitney Kilgore coming to you live from North Texas, and just delighted. I'm going to fangirl and say it is about you. That's why I'm here too. And it's a whopping 5 p.m. here.
Hi, Whitney. We've got a time hierarchy thing going on.
And Willie.
Willie, I think you're muted.
You seem to be muted. It doesn't look like you mute yourself, but you look muted. That's too bad. No, it was working like half an hour ago. I'll just recommend that you try to change your default and then try again to talk. Willie's in South Africa. If you want to write something in the chat box, I don't know where in South Africa you are, but it's midnight there, and it's midnight here in Cairo as well. Wow. And we have with us Insia. I don't know if her audio is working. Insia, do you want to try? And she's in Egypt as well. She's Swedish, but she lives here in Egypt. Oh, she's gone. Okay. So we at some point we had 4 people who are here at midnight because of you guys. So the first thing I just wanted to say, Tressie, is that other than loving you like I just love you, but the keynote was incredible in the way that I thought it embodied praxis, because you didn't come out there and talk to us about theory, and you really showed us how someone with the kind of ethos that you have tries to work within an institutional structure, and you try to live up to your values, and I really, really appreciate that. It was very, very helpful, because I always think of you as this really big person, right? And the kinds of struggles that you talked about are the kinds of things we all go through, and we don't know how people like you deal with them. So it was a really helpful thing for my career just to listen to that. I don't know if anybody else has any questions, so I'll leave space for everybody else to ask questions if they have any.
Okay, I've got one. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, it's about how you start the conversation, and I guess I want to ask, how do you start a digital sociology and Cathy in digital humanities conversation with colleagues who don't like the word digital in front, or you don't know, or maybe you don't know yet, colleagues who don't seem to be into it. I had a colleague, a lecturer, young guy, breaking all the stereotypes, plus he was Canadian, and he ran the other way when I said digital humanities. And so how do you start that conversation and kind of keep people in the room? I guess that's my question for both of you, whether it's digital sociology or digital humanities, in either direction. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm going to go on mute.
Why don't you start? Because you talked about this so brilliantly.
Yeah, I think how do you keep them in the room? I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't try very hard to keep them in the room. I really, seriously. I mean, so there are some people that you can't, that's not an option, right? So you have to have the buy-in, for example, from the appropriate administrators and external actors that you need to move forward. And for that, we do, I think, the kinds of stuff that almost all of us are familiar doing, which is you learn how to craft a narrative that works for that audience. But outside of that, I mean, sometimes I get a little cheerleadery about my work and wish that more people felt about it the way that I feel. And I can, I'm still junior enough that I wish other people were as excited about this thing as I am. And I still make that mistake. But I do try to remember that it's just not my job to convince people of the value of something. I really do feel like my job is more to find people who are already thinking that way and to make spaces for us to meet and talk as much as possible. I mean, that's really what every sort of, ASA, our professional organization, has something like 90 of these interest groups, right? I mean, they don't seem to, the political economists aren't trying to make the, I don't know, media people listen to them and vice versa. It was about them finding it, and maybe that's just where we're going to have to be. But I'm always hopeful that across the discipline people will engage. Something I just don't think you can afford to not engage. But yeah, I think it's more about finding each other.
Yeah. And I tend to have exactly the same idea of institution building. I mean, I was an administrator for 8 years, so then I was in a nice position of being able to say, yes, if you can do it, I'm happy to support you and make that opportunity. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm not in the central administration, and I wasn't before, before I was in, having somebody who says, yeah, if you can make that happen, I'm willing to support you. That has to be the groundwork. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that takes a lot of energy. But once you have that, I agree. If you invite 200 people and 10 people show up, you just go with those 10 people and say, we've got our posse. Mm-hmm. We've got the people we need. We've got the people we need to do the job done. Yeah. One thing I like to do sort of midway between having administrators who are interested in having my posse is to do a really splashy public event with shareholders who I know are going to be part of my posse. They're co-presenting it with me, and somebody who's a great speaker like Tressie or something and who has legitimation in a public way, give a talk and then do a reception afterwards. And kind of we're social animals, so if there's people that are really excited about something and engaged in something, and there's a mass of people, it's amazing how many people who were not interested suddenly get interested. That's, but I really don't think you can push. I think it has to be pull, not push. And really, you have to make the honey and draw the bees to the honey. And if they don't come, then you just say, that's great. You do your thing, we'll do our thing. But
the honey for me this year was Digital Pedagogy Lab Cairo, right? I invited all these great people right here to charm everyone, and it's helped me a lot.
And
now I have a good critical mass of people. Sorry?
Did it turn out well? Did people come and participate in what you were doing?
It was amazing. I mean, we had a smaller version of where you're at today. So it was 2 tracks and 3 days and an unconference, and it really made a difference. Like, definitely the ones who were already sort of interested were the ones who came, but then they became a lot closer to this way of thinking than they imagined they would be beforehand. And it was an international one too, so it wasn't just people from my institution. So yeah, it worked really, really well for us. I'll mute so someone else can ask a question now.
See, this is good for me too, because we need to
At
do
the
something
opening of
like
your
that.
program,
That's
absolutely.
right, and
At
we've
the-
been so involved in the nuts and bolts.
Sure.
None of us have thought to do. We need to do something.
Right, especially when your new students are there and you can
That's right.
introduce the new students, it would be
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great. Not that you don't have, you've
All
got
right.
so much
I was
time.
about to say, I'm going to do it in my free time.
And your
Thank you,
free
Cathy.
time.
Tressie, can I ask a question? I got to watch your keynote. That was really nice to be able to do that, and it was really well done. We got to hear it and see it really nicely, so it's always great when that happens. So yay to people over there who made that happen. So you said that the program that you're doing is totally online, and I know you kind of brought up that community building piece and that you're still kind of working through that. Can I ask what the decision was to have it be totally online? Was that from the get-go it was like that, or did you go through iterations?
Yeah, so there were 2 things. The first was several people asked in the room about how did you get that approved and how did we move? Well, part of it was because we had on the books, which for us here in the U.S. means we had all the necessary institutional approvals, accreditors, the university, etc. On the books, a program that could be done if it had this online capacity, right? So there was an online program, yes, there was not a digital sociology program, that's what we brought to it, but it was part of that wave over the last like 5 or 6 years. It was something that the institution had identified as a need, and again, leadership matters. My chair of my department being so proactive and open, saying, let's get the space while the institution is interested in getting it, and we'll figure the rest out later.
Yeah.
And so even when she hired me, she said, listen, we staked out a flag for this thing, and we need to give it some identity and heft. And right, she's like, but you had to grab it while it was there. And she even tells a fabulous story about like getting the paperwork in at the last possible moment, being one of the last programs to get something like this in the books. When the institution's interested in doing something, that means all the resources are lined up to make it a fairly smooth bureaucratic process. And again, we had good department leadership that saw the moment, capitalized on it, and then said, now we'll figure out how to, turn this into something. So it was there. That's the first thing. And then the second thing was, again, we are a critical program, and all of my faculty colleagues share a commitment to non-traditional, empirically no longer has the same meaning. We probably should stop using it, but it works for the purposes that we know what I mean. But for students for whom coming to campus for a traditional graduate program would not be feasible, the kinds of students we continue to concede to for-profit colleges. This is why I was, kind of part of what I brought. I said, listen, we can't continue to concede, especially for women, that this is the only way you can do this is be this traditional male body and to do this kind of career. And my colleagues shared that. And we said, even if it meant that for many of us, we were going to have to learn this thing while we were also tenure track and doing everything else, we were committed to it. We really do see this as part of our commitment to, are we going to live the values that we say matter to us? If so, that means we're going to have to learn something new, figure something out, and run with it and do the best we can. And that's what, so yeah, it was a combination of the two. We really do get a qualitatively different student in the program because of that. I think that's why we have so many women who are willing to do something that is so methodologically stringent that other programs have a problem attracting. I think that was why.
Will the students ever come physically to campus?
Yes. It is not mandatory because we didn't want to make them. First, you change the entire relationship to a community program when you tell people they have to show up. But two, we couldn't say we could force you to come to campus because we really can't. But what we have done is we have developed, right now, there are ideas that are on the books because this is our first year of the cohort, but we do have programs in place. We want them to have the same kind of experience that our on-campus students have with knowing the physical space of the department. So even if they were just driving through Richmond and wanted to come to the department, what I had to have in mind is online students should feel just as comfortable dropping in as our on-campus students. Really. Maybe they are going to be in town for a week, and they should feel like that's their space. If they're in town for work or family or something, they should be in the department. They should have a home here. They should have a place to put their stuff or, whatever. And so that mattered to us a great deal. And so we are going to have, we call them our professionalization workshops. We will also have a sort of you've moved now, milestone event. You've moved from the first year to the second year kind of thing. That is voluntary, but that we're hoping the students will come.
Very cool.
Hi, I just had a question to follow up on that. First of all, I'm Rebecca Hogue. I'm co-director of Virtually Connecting. I wanted to say hi, and but also you had mentioned about the space for online students to be able to be virtual or to come in and feel that space. But I'm wondering if you've got any brilliant ideas on how to make sort of an online drop-in space or to have that space for online students who can't physically get there, but to still have that relationship with faculty that is less formal, that doesn't require, making an appointment,
right?
But has that drop-in kind of thing. Any thoughts?
I feel you, Rebecca. So I can tell you some of the stuff that we're going to try and where I got the ideas from. I can't tell you yet how they're going to work, obviously, because we're just going to try these things out and we'll see what sticks. And this is why I love coming to this and talking to people and trying to see what other people are doing. So if anybody has any ideas on that, please feel free to share them. As it's a personal interest of mine, we're really hoping to crack that kind of thing. So a couple things, again, that I learned from talking to for-profit students who were attending all online. Online colleges had invested a lot in sort of learning management systems, like many of us have, but do all of their work within them. And they had tried to build spaces for the students to use to do precisely that. And what I found was lots of students weren't using them. Instead, they were meeting each other on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I was asking them was why, right? So there were a couple of things. The race, class, and gender dynamics that happens in an in-person classroom also happen in an online classroom. And they were withdrawing from that to have a safe space to talk to each other, especially the women. So one of the things that we took away from that is there needs to be a formal online space and then an informal one. Right? So the formal one will be the space where you can ask faculty questions, can kind of, a hierarchy will be evident, you can't get away from that. But that we just needed at least a space online that was not faculty monitored, right? We'll see how that goes. But yes, where they could meet with each other outside of that, but would still be hopefully within the ecosystem of the online environment. So that's one thing that we're going to try. The second thing is all of the faculty who are teaching in the digital sociology program do online office hours. So kind of like we're doing here, we will just be open and online. Right, so I'm going to be in my office Wednesdays from 1 to 4, for example, with, we have to use Zoom, but Google Hangouts or Zoom or whatever our conferencing is. So the students can ping us, they can either text or connect with us via video, they can drop in, right, without it being an appointment time. One of the other things that we're going to try is we do have teaching assistants for the online program, so our teaching assistants will also have open hours, so we're trying to alternate and have different time frames available. So that's about the department being committed and I think just committing resources to it. And something I didn't get a chance to say in the talk today, we are still developing the capacity to fund students, but we do have some money for our online students. And one of the ways we're doing that is by using some of the online students for doing the same stuff our TAs do. And so they'll be able to work with us in that way.
Those are all.
Okay, I'm curious if Cathy and Sean have tried something different to achieve the same kind of thing. And the second question is that there seems to have been a lot of those social spaces during the Fed Lab already, and you're only on your first day. Like every time someone asked Tressie a question, it's like, oh, we were talking earlier. And I'm wondering, when were they talking? When did they manage to talk to everybody?
Actually, I don't know. It all blends together for me. I truly don't know anymore whether it was online or off. I have no idea.
That's funny. So I've done all those same kinds of things, not as systematically, and I certainly am not as generous as you. 4 hours in the office seems like a long time.
It's going to be my writing time.
But yes, that's good. But one thing that we did when I ran that MOOC, where I was doing the meta MOOC, where we tried to deconstruct the MOOC, and we did everything homespun, and if I'd stayed at Duke University, the next MOOC we were going to run was going to be to show people how to make a MOOC of their own and how to use a commercial system to actually do what they wanted to do. And we were planning on having we had several different people around the world who were sitting in on the future of higher ed, and we were going to have each one do a sort of response to ours, but focusing on the history of higher education in their own country or their own region. Then I left, so we couldn't. I changed jobs in the middle of that MOOC, so that was invisible to the audience, but it was not invisible to us because we were packing and selling and getting out and all of that. But one thing we were doing is I had face-to-face students who were in a class, and we kept phones and technology open so anyone who was taking the online course could phone in at any time and actually be part of a cohort that was already a physical group. And that worked really, really well. And somebody else at Penn, at the Writers Lab House at Penn, taught MOOCs only. He never made any videos or anything. His class was just a camera with 6 face-to-face students talking, and anyone from the world could call in or go onto a Google Hangout. But it really felt more like you were part of a cohort. So I don't know if you're teaching another course that's similar. So you could really do it. And everybody profited. The face-to-face students did, and the online students did. It was really quite exciting.
Okay.
And we tried to pitch that to Coursera. They were so not interested.
I bet.
Because it wasn't, it wasn't scaled to a million people. But it was a fantastic learning experience. So that might be something that a variation you could try. But those are all great. What you're doing is great and very committed.
We'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
There we go.
Up.
Hi.
Hi.
Technology will fail. Sorry, I'm back.
And we got you.
Oh, you're waiting for me to say something now.
Well, because it's got audio and stuff, you might have to say. I think everybody's just in awe of you guys. This is the most silent hangout I've ever been on, where everybody's just smiling and enjoying themselves, but they're just...
That's cute.
It's a little bit more like a meetup than a hangout, right? It's you finally get to meet those rock stars you follow on Twitter, and you don't know what to say to them after all these years. Tressie, you might want to connect with the folks at UNT. I just finished up my doc program here, and they were solving for creating some of those digital social spaces, and I'll shoot you a note, and we can.
I appreciate that. Really, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the cohort, what Tressie's program is doing, the cohort is the single most important thing. Having everybody start at the same time and feel like they're part of a cohort. I mean, there's so much research on commuter schools and community college students. If there's a cohort, it makes a huge difference. I think it's brilliant that you're doing that.
I like the idea of, and I just want to throw this out there, you mentioned something about TAs, but making that open to online and giving the online students some of the same opportunities that happen in the face-to-face. And perhaps even translating that to, you'd mentioned having sort of some peer spaces, but giving the online TAs an opportunity perhaps to be the facilitators of those peer spaces, because they do need to be, somebody has to maintain that safe space. And if it's not faculty, it still needs someone there to make sure it stays safe.
Yeah, so let me be clear. When I said online TAs, we've got an online TA who is an online student. Yeah, so we are doing that, but you're right. What I worry about, and again, some of this is about, you just start with one cohort. We also need to build sort of we got to build a team, and it may be until the second or third cohort that we can do some of this stuff once we have a deep enough pool of people. But yeah, we have to think about how the informal space is going to be run. I agree with you. We think it matters that faculty not be there in the same way that graduate student lounges were faculty free, right? That's how what I call it. We've got to give them the grad student lounge somewhere. But yeah, you're right. I know. Yeah, I'm familiar too, Rebecca, with all of the work and all of the problems that have emerged out of some spaces that have been completely unmoderated. That's what I said. I agree. We got to work on it.
Do you want to be mindful of time, everybody? We've got about 3 minutes before we're at the half-hour mark. Okay. So I just want to be mindful of that for the people online as well. So
Could everybody hear?
Can I get two things? Can I get a very quick preview of Cathy's talk tomorrow? Because we get, we're like the journalists who got here first. So we get a preview of Cathy's which is at 9 a.m., right? 9 a.m. Eastern?
Not plan this, but in fact, my talk intersects with hers really well, because I'm saying institutional change is hard, but actually what we do in the classroom is something anyone can do tomorrow. So I'm going to actually be talking about ways to organize meetings, way to organize classrooms around certain kinds of principles that I've been doing in my classes, but that are very, very adaptable. But I am going to go back to the industrial age model, because it makes me mad that for-profits and technology people have taken over. The industrial age model was this, so therefore now we need more technology. Instead, I'm saying, no, the industrial model was highly technologized. The whole apparatus and the bureaucracy that we fight was invented between 1865 and fully in place by 1925. And we can change that, but not by adding more technology onto a traditional system, but by actually trying to take away what that infrastructure was and make transparent who created that infrastructure, how it's based in eugenics, how it's based in standard deviation and Galton's idea of what the bell curve had to be. And I'm especially looking at the way four-year colleges and the research university was structured around selectivity and rankings and prestige. And at the same time, the community college was invented to be about inclusion and not about rankings, and about figuring out who's missing. And that my model, a model that I'm advocating for remaking higher education, is to put those together, to take the research component, but get rid of that whole tyranny of the rankings and selectivity, and learn from community colleges and regional universities and other universities about things. Yeah, about things like engagement and community and inclusion versus exclusion.
And Sean, all of the
That's amazing.
So that they can watch, right?
That's correct. All the keynotes are being streamed.
Yes, and we've posted those links, and I'll keep posting them. So Sean, just one last question for you before you go. How's your track going, and how's your feeling about DishPad Lab this time around? This is like your fifth.
This is this is I think the fifth or fourth or something like that in there, and it's going fantastic. We actually have an amazing group this year. I mean, not just our track, but I'm hearing this from all the teachers that the groups are all fantastic. Everyone's really engaged. Our tracks this year are actually really interesting. We added design and intro and action, and people are they're having a great time. The response to Tressie's keynote was fantastic, and because it was a fantastic keynote, one of the best, and I'm certain that everyone's going to love Cathy as well tomorrow morning. So.
There will be silences in my talk tomorrow, because I'm going to do a bunch of think, pair, shares, where I actually have the audience doing what I'm talking about doing. So
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So
well, maybe we can think, pair, share on Twitter.
Yeah, people can do that online. People can do that online.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We can facilitate
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. So we'll let people know that that's going to happen, so that they can plan who their buddy is, who their pair are going to be.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes, yes. Tell people to watch with friends.
Yes. Cool. Okay, we'll let you guys go off to dinner or whatever it is. Have fun over there, and say hi to Jesse and Josh.
Absolutely.
And sleep well.
And Audrey, who always sends her best maha. Thank you.
Yes, we'll see her tomorrow, inshallah. Say hi to her until we see her. Thank you.
Sleep well, everybody.
That's right.
Yeah, sleep.
Can't believe you guys. Yeah, sleep.
Okay, so we'll say bye to you guys on site, and we'll stay online for a few more minutes in case people who are in awe now feel able to say something.
My pleasure. So great to meet you all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
So if anybody has to go, of course, you can go ahead. If anybody would like to hang out a little bit more. I'm still really excited, so I won't be able to sleep right now. So.
So I have a question that I think I'll figure out how to work in tomorrow, depending on where Cathy goes with the keynote. But what she was saying about the industrial model, the history of the industrial model, and maybe the community colleges were supposed to be about something else, right? As she was saying that, I remembered, wait a minute, there were all these other things on the one slide where Tressie was talking about the Information Underground Railroad, and I didn't have a good question about that, so I didn't mention it today. But when Cathy started talking about the other ways to connect with students that were not necessarily, how do we solve this with layering more technology on top? The fact that Coursera said, no, we don't want to hear anything you have to say. That kind of issue. Then that's when I remembered. Oh, and Tressie was talking about the what she called the information underground railroad, right? And she had essentially a list of things that were not 100% conventional higher education, right? Starting with the freedom schools and going from there. So I'm wondering if there's some way for those to intersect and maybe even intersect in the discussion this week, since they're going to be there this week. Uh-oh.
If people are watching, we're planning to create a Google Doc for the Think, Pair, Share. We're not really sure whose idea it was, either Whitney's or Rebecca's. And so we'll post that link on Twitter so that if people during Cathy's keynote want to do Think, Pair, Share, or even if people on site want to do it with people online, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I think it was Whitney and I simultaneously had the idea.
George.
Yes.
I have no answer. I can offer you crickets to that question, but it's something that I need more time to think about. But I think I understand what you're trying to bring together, but I definitely need more time to process the idea.
Okay, that would be great, and whenever, I mean, this is not an instantaneous process, otherwise we'd be done, right? We'd have higher ed solved, and we clearly don't. So yeah, whenever it bubbles up, just, hit me on Twitter, and I may throw it out, like I said, I may just tweet it out tomorrow during, Cathy's keynote, depending on where she actually goes with her talk and so on. So.
That would be great.
Yeah.
So spend a lot of time putting it into 140 characters with Nichebed hashtag on, right? That's what you can do until tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll stay up all night composing the perfect tweet for it.
You're going to be up like at 6 a.m. to catch her keynote, don't you?
I actually am not sure that's really going to happen, so I may have to catch it. Well, I've done it for you before, Maha. Right? I mean, I have. But
You have. You could schedule the tweet. You could schedule it on TweetDeck, and then wake up to all the answers.
Oh, that's true. I could just send it out and have it go at like 6:28, partway through the talk.
Just as long as you're nobody's Think, Pair, Share buddy, they would be like looking for the answer.
Why is George not answering?
Yeah, he doesn't like me.
He was just online and he's not answering. No, like half an hour later, oh sorry people, I got distracted by da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody want to add anything else, or shall I just start going offline? Okay, looks like... Go ahead.
Go
ahead, Willie.
I'm happy that you can hear me this time, but I'd like to listen to what George had to say earlier as well. And George, I'm also just going to have to wrap my mind around what the American system is like, what you're talking about when you say community college and all of that. But I'll keep that bubbling as well. I'd like to take part in this conversation with you sometime.
Okay, that's great. And community college, I'm more familiar with. Well, it's kind of the same across the U.S., but in California, it's a distinct tier. It's a 2-year system that results. Traditionally, it was about people taking courses of interest that they needed to, just further their own careers and so on. Now there's sort of a drive towards either associate degrees or transfer after 2 years to a more traditional 4-year college. And the drive for transfer, it seems to be one of the driving forces now. To go to a community college that is theoretically lower cost and has some other advantages over a traditional 4-year, and then going to the and finishing with a bachelor's at a 4-year college. So that's kind of what community college has evolved to be about in the U.S. Does anybody want to add anything? Does that kind of sum it up?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that'll give me something to think about. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So it looks like if this conversation doesn't come up in a V-Connecting session, maybe we could do a missed conversation on it after everyone has had time to think and blog about it, and then we regroup maybe. So
That sounds cool.
yeah. Okay, so I'll just go offline because I probably need to go to bed in like 5 minutes or something. And I hope everybody enjoyed this meeting with Cathy and Tressie. It was awesome to have them here for the first time. Tomorrow, there's Cathy's keynote at 9 a.m. and that's live streamed, and the link to watch that is on the Virtually Connecting website and DigPed Lab website. And then at 4 p.m. Eastern, there's going to be the hybridity workshop. And that's a workshop at DigPed Lab. That's a hybrid workshop. And there will be some people joining us virtually as well. So there will be people on site working on it and people virtually presenting and then discussing together. And afterwards at 5 p.m. there's going to be a hallway conversation with Audrey Waters, Jesse Stommel, and maybe, I think, Tim Owens might come as well. And maybe Martha Burtis. We're not sure who's confirmed, but definitely Audrey and Jesse, inshallah. So if you're watching, we will hope to see you there, and bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Maha.
Bye.
Have a good